In Vietnam, a mandatory biometric ID rollout recently allowed the regime to freeze 86 million bank accounts overnight. Under the banner of national security, the government demonstrated that in a digital system, access to your life savings can be erased with a single line of code. This architecture of absolute control is now surfacing in the United States through the Genius Act. Publicly, the government pitches it as an economic salvation, a maneuver to back digital stablecoins with American VAT, effectively suctioning billions into the Treasury's drying coffers. The legislation has triggered immediate blowback from the Kremlin. Russian leadership claims the Genius Act is a desperate American gambit designed to offload its $37 trillion debt burden onto the global populace before the system collapses. However, hard data from the Treasury's tick reports tells a different story. Foreign central banks aren't dumping U.S. debt. They are actually starved for dollar liquidity. When global economies face internal crises, they liquidate treasuries because they desperately need physical cash to prop up their own banks. While central banks are aggressively stacking gold, they are doing so to build a firewall. After watching the West seize $300 billion in sovereign Russian assets, nations like China and Saudi Arabia realize the U.S. can wipe out national wealth with a keystroke. A physical gold bar in a local vault is the only asset that exists outside this digital panopticon. Even the BRICS nations are focused on building an alternative payment architecture, private fiber optic cables, and independent settlement systems, rather than a new currency. They want to trade in dollars without using American plumbing that Washington can intercept. The focus on a geopolitical dollar collapse serves as a loud distraction from a more immediate domestic mechanism quietly operating within the financial plumbing. The Genius Act provides a regulatory shield for the indispensable grease in the wheels of the crypto world, stablecoins. These tokens act as a predictable harbor for traders, allowing them to move in and out of volatile assets like Bitcoin without leaving the digital ecosystem. The business model is simple. You give a corporate sponsor one physical dollar, and they hand you one digital token. They pledge that your token will always maintain a strict one-to-one peg with the US dollar, allowing you to cash it back in at any time. There is a specific economic catch for the holder. While you use this token to trade, you receive 0% interest. You take on the institutional risk of the sponsor, but you get none of the return. The sponsor, however, takes your physical dollar and buys short-term U.S. Treasury bills. These bills are hyper-liquid and currently yield around 3%. By paying you nothing and holding the debt themselves, the sponsor keeps the spread as pure profit. This creates a business model of infinite scalability. Because sponsors can issue endless tokens off a virtually non-existent capital base, they generate billions in interest income from government debt using other people's money. It is a license to print profit. This lucrative spread has triggered an absolute corporate gold rush. Prominent political families and Wall Street titans are aggressively entering the space, launching their own stablecoin operations to capture the yield. By facilitating these tokens, the government has essentially authorized a multi-billion-dollar shadow money market. It is an unregulated system that relies entirely on opacity and the public's unquestioned trust in the sponsor's reserves. A financial panic occurs the moment every participant demands their physical money back at the exact same time. For stablecoins, that moment is a mathematical inevitability. When a macro shock hits the system, millions of stablecoin holders will hit the redemption button simultaneously. The sponsors will suddenly face trillions of dollars in demands for physical cash they don't actually have on hand. To raise that cash, sponsors must instantly dump their treasury holdings onto the market. They will attempt to liquidate massive volumes of debt in a single afternoon to meet the panic. The primary dealers who run the treasury market cannot absorb that kind of hyperspeed volume. The market will instantly lock down, causing the very safe harbor traders relied on to freeze entirely. We saw this exact script play out with money market funds in October 2008. But while the Fed bailed out the legacy banks back then, they have no mandate to rescue an unregulated crypto shadow market. The result is a systemic seizure. Without a lender of last resort, the stablecoin ecosystem collapses, leaving the public's wealth trapped behind a frozen digital interface. In the aftermath of such a collapse, the economy paralyzes. With private stablecoins wiped out and liquidity gone, the public will naturally look to the government for a rescue. Behind the scenes, the infrastructure for that rescue is already optimized. While the government publicly claims retail digital currencies are blocked, they have been quietly perfecting a wholesale interbank blockchain, a private ledger currently running transfers between the world's largest investment banks. When the private market freezes, this wholesale architecture becomes the only door left open. To save the public's trapped wealth, the government can offer to migrate those frozen private balances onto this state-run ledger. But that rescue comes with a condition. You must enroll in the same biometric tracking system we saw in Vietnam. This follows a historical cycle of authoritarian control. From the 14th century House of Bardi to modern weaponized sanctions, hyper-centralized institutions always eventually freeze the masses out to protect the core of the system. The inevitable collapse of unregulated stablecoins provides the necessary crisis to move the population from private wallets into a single government-controlled ledger. By linking financial access to biometric identity, the state gains the power to monitor every transaction and terminate any account with a single line of code, turning a financial rescue into a permanent digital cage.